Hello, everyone. SIGA WOW is back, the show dedicated to promoting and celebrating women in sport. I'm your host, Katie Simmons, Global COO at SIGA and Managing Director of the SIGA Women Programme. Now, the last few months have literally flown by, and I've been blown away with the positive impact that SIGA Women is having globally. Since our last WOW show, we've successfully held the annual summit on female leadership in sport, hosted by our founding member MasterCard in Manhattan at their awesome technology hub. And New York back in March was just opening up after the pandemic, and we were proud to safely host over 70 VIPs in person with over 1,000 delegates participating online. And I'll be speaking to Alison Giordano from MasterCard during the first part of the show, and we will play out to the highlights reel from the March summit. So stay tuned for that. We also kicked off the 2022 SIGA Women Global Mentorship Programme. Now in its fourth cycle, this year saw a record number of applications. Over 50 mentees applied for mentorship over 20 countries. We're going viral, people. And I'd just like to give a big shout out to all our fabulous mentors and mentees that are tuned in to SIGA WOW. It was great to see you all during last week's group session on goal setting. And watch out for our gift giveaways questions in the second part of the show. But let's get underway because we have three special guests to start for our 9th episode of SIGA WOW that's entitled Unlocking the Power of Women's Sport, the Rise of the Underdog. And I'm joined by these three phenomenal executives that are leading the way for women's football. Now, the timing of this episode couldn't be better as we are here just after a fantastic display of women's football following the UEFA Women's Champions League final that was held in Turin on Saturday between Barcelona and Olympique Lyonnais. My special guests include Alison Giordano, Vice President, Global Sponsorships and Consumer Marketing, MasterCard and Vice Chair at SIGA, Jessica Berman, Commissioner of National Women's Soccer League and Deputy Chair of the SIGA America Advisory Board, and now last certainly but not least, from the winning team of Saturday's UEFA Women's Champions League final, Sophie Savage, Head of International Women's Football and Olympique Lyonnais. I'm with champions at this episode. I really can't wait to get stuck in. Just a quick reminder that SIGA WOW is interactive, so please send your questions to our guests in the live chat. Follow us at SIGA Alliance, #SIGA Women, #SIGA WOW. It's now time to wow. Alison, Jessica and Sophie, welcome to Women on Wednesdays. And obviously I'm going to start with our European champion, Sophie. And I want to start by asking you about the final on Saturday. We all watched on the edge of our seats. I know you were nervous about coming on the show, just in case it didn't go your way. Tell us how, from your perspective, how important was the 3-1 win to you as a professional working within the team, to the team, of course, and how will it positively transform the team internationally?
It was a wow first. You know, it's been great. The event set up by the UEFA was fantastic. Players on the field have been great, both teams. It was one of the best games I've ever seen in women's football, and so I think everyone was proud. We were a little bit the underdog before the final, so I mean, at least some people thought that. We did not, but some people did, so it was an extra motivation for our players, and they got into the game, you know, as they can do with all their skills, all the good mentality to win the game, and the first goal was so magic, and I think it gave the tone of the game. There was, I don't know how many Barcelona fans were in the stadium, but that was huge and great and beautiful, and our fans tried everything they could to be heard, and they succeeded. So no, really, it's been fantastic. So in terms of exposure, I mean, I think it doesn't compare with the 7 previous Champions League that we won, because it was the 8th, because this time it was seen everywhere in the world thanks to the DAZN deal, free on YouTube for everyone. So I think the figures are incredible, and well, it's right in our corporate strategy of internationalization of the brand, which was one of the reasons why we are in the NWSL. So all that contribute to the group development. And well, as Alison is here, I must say that, having MasterCard on our sleeve for the game, well, it was, I think, also extraordinary for our sponsor too. And yeah, so many memories of that weekend.
You're still obviously recovering from the weekend and from the brilliant win, exactly. In a positive way. And obviously, I love the fact that your first word to describe it was wow. So that was brilliant. You mentioned Alison and MasterCard, and I'd love to bring Alison back into this, because Ali, you're leading the MasterCard sponsorship strategy in relation to women's sports properties, and you sponsor both OL and the NWSL. And you must have been absolutely thrilled by Saturday's triumph. What were your impressions when you watched the match, given how many women's soccer or football, whatever we're going to describe it as? What was your impression? Have we turned the tables, and has the tides turned in terms of women's football globally after Saturday?
Well, first off, very excited about the win. I was glued to my phone, which was glued to my TV. And it was just so thrilling to see, all of the women just play their heart out. And, between, Ada's header, the opening goal, Ada's header, and just the overall excitement throughout the match, it was really something to watch. And Wendy's just absolute euphoria at the end, with the whole team behind her. And she just was so excited. Really just a thrilling moment for women's sports. So excited for the team. I think it was a great moment for women's sport. I mean, you had amazing numbers in terms of viewership. And even if you look at the previous matches, Barcelona selling out, I think it was 2 matches in a row with over 90,000 or 80,000 people in attendance. I understand Turin, it was also a sold out show. And then I think the fact that we had, global streaming for free and really being able to bring women's football to the masses was such a huge step. So really excited about the momentum that this has continued, and hopefully even jump-started further for both international women's football, and then also for Jessica and everything going on with the NWSL in the US. Just a really exciting moment for the game.
Because I think that it's true to say that MasterCard has been one of the cutting edge global brands that's actually supported women's sport before we had the viewership. So, why did MasterCard sponsor women's sport and in particular women's football? How did it align with you as a brand?
Yeah, I mean, look, the viewership, we have a long way to go from a media perspective. So, why we're in women's football and women's sport in general is pretty simple. Our company at its core is focused on gender balance and driving gender equity in society. That being our corporate strategy and part of our mission, and us then being a huge investor in sponsorship around the world, both men's and now women's, it's sort of a no-brainer, for us to be able to then translate our strategy into how we're commercializing both our business and what we do in marketing made perfect sense. And then for us to partner, especially within football, because we have such a large footprint on the men's side, it was just sort of a natural opportunity for us. And we have been in women's football, but now we've really taken a concerted effort to go even further, partnering with the likes of OL, partnering with the likes of Arsenal Women's Football Club, and now the National Women's Soccer League and the PA. And then also then be supported by amazing women who are brand ambassadors and are just fantastic, and having the opportunity to spotlight those women in content and really let people know who they are help tell the story of this great game. Again, it's a perfect alignment with our strategy as a business. So that's why we're in it.
Thanks, Alison. I'm going to bring Jessica into the chat. Jessica, first of all, a huge congratulations on your recent appointment as Commissioner of the NWSL. I, for one, just jumped for joy. I think there are only a few women in the world that hold the position of Commissioner. And I do believe that if you can see it, you can be it. And I'm sure you at the helm just fills every young woman's heart with absolute glee, because they can see a pathway, because you're there and you've smashed it and you've achieved it. What was the reaction from your family and friends when they heard your appointment? You only just started 4 weeks ago.
Thank you so much, Katie. And I'm so fortunate that I've gotten familiar with you and Siga and Manuel and the great work that you all do, and really happy to be here with you all today. You know, because you've actually met my children, that I have 2 boys. And so my role, I see it as an opportunity not just to influence the next generation of little girls, but also little boys, and to show them what's possible for men and women. And it was actually my oldest son who at the time was 12 when I was becoming the deputy commissioner of the National Lacrosse League, where I was essentially leading a men's sport and was going to be the first woman to be a deputy commissioner of a men's professional sports league. And when I approached him essentially to get his buy-in to be able to make the sacrifices and compromises that I knew would be necessary in order for me to do my job well, he told me that I had to take the job because I was a pioneer, and that it was my responsibility to society to pave the way for little girls, and also to show little boys what's possible for women. And so, yeah, I recognize that responsibility. I carry it as a heavy load for me, and it drives and inspires me to work really hard, because ultimately that's just really the manifestation of an opportunity, and the real impact will come from our ability to actually effectuate change and to drive those viewership numbers that Ali was talking about, and to generate revenue, and to make sure that we're continuing to break records like we saw at the start of the season with Angel City having a sellout crowd of 22,000, and investing in facilities like they are in Kansas City, and really changing the face of what it means to invest in women's sports as a business.
Your participation today, Jessica, caused some excitement amongst the mentees. And I've got a video question from Anna Grant, who's one of our mentees from the Siga Women 2022 program. And she has a question on your transition from NLL to NWSL. And I know you've got both the logo of the NWSL and a ball, as well as the stick behind you, which is a nod to your lacrosse recent history.
Hi, my name's Anna Grant. I am the Outdoor Recreation Executive with Sport Ireland, and I'm located in the capital of Ireland, Dublin. I am absolutely delighted to be part of the Siga Mentorship Programme 2022, and I'm even more happy to have my mentor Alison Forch, who I'm really looking forward to working with. My question for Jessica would be, obviously, Jessica, you obviously were working with the National Hockey League before moving to your role with the National Lacrosse League, and then obviously to your position now with the NWSL. But I kind of want to hear your background to, have you actually played any of these sports? And what your background is with regards to the activities that you like to do in your spare time.
Oh, I love that question. My connectivity to the game itself is really in 2 capacities. Growing up, culturally, my family, we just didn't play organized sports. I don't think that was really because I was a girl. It just wasn't really part of my family's culture in terms of how we spent our recreational time. But I was very physically active, and I was a dancer, actually. And part of being a dancer actually exposed me to cheerleading and twirling and dancing around the enthusiasm of the game. And so I grew up around sports more as a supporter, And through that experience, really had the opportunity to really catch the bug of sports and the way that it actually unites communities. And I actually have often wondered if the fact that I wasn't on the field or the court super focused on the game and actually was on the sidelines may have contributed to my ability to observe the impact that sport was having on the fans, because I was really responsible for engaging the fans in the experience. So that was really the underpinning or the foundation. The second is that I'm a youth sport mom. Both of my kids play virtually every sport, including soccer, including a dabbling in lacrosse, and they both play travel hockey. And so as it relates to the cultures of the sport and the next generation of fans, which we know a lot of that is uprooted from within the youth sport community, I do have that sort of firsthand perspective of what's happening and how the landscape is changing, which has presented a lot of challenges as it relates to access to youth sport, which I know SIGA is actively working on, and something that I have a personal passion around addressing, making sure that we're offering age-appropriate programming for our kids, for the next generation of fans and players, so that they're playing multiple sports and, most importantly, having fun.
Thanks, Jessica, for the answer. I'm going to bring Ali, because I know, Ali, you've just recently taken up golf, and obviously MasterCard sponsors the LPGA Tour. I wanted to sort of ask you about why you decided to start playing golf later in life and how that's helping you in a male-dominated industry.
Yeah, and just to clarify, we're a PGA Tour sponsor.
Oh, PGA Tour.
Yeah, but we are a sponsor of the AIG Women's Open and the Men's Open with the RNA. So yeah, no, absolutely. I did. I actually played yesterday. Not so great, but I'm every single time I get out there, I'm a little bit better. No, I look, golf's an amazing game. I think what's been for me the challenge previously was, being the mom, your job, doing that balance. I didn't have the time to be able to go out and, build relationships with, business partners and customers. And now, where I am in terms of, where my kids are in terms of their age, and, I've really just been able to prioritize it. And not only has it, is it allowing me to really better understand and get closer to the game that I'm involved in from a business perspective, but it's also a fantastic way to build and further relationships, right, with partners, customers, new business, et cetera. So yeah, it's something that I've seen my colleagues on the sponsorship side, I would say majority men, over time really take advantage of that time and really use golf for those business opportunities. And, my position now is, well, why not me too, right? And I think not only was I not out there previously, I didn't have the confidence to do it. And, I've always had the support, I would say, from, my, let's say, nuclear business family, but never had the confidence. And I think now I've gotten past that. I found some amazing women to play golf with who've also built me up, and some amazing male mentors and friends that have also really surrounded me with the right positive energy to keep me going. So I really suggest anyone to pick up that game, because what's so fantastic is you have your phone away for a few hours. You really can, use it as great thinking time and really focus time, but also build relationships. So definitely get out there.
Really inspiring in order to take up a new skill. I really love that. And you talked about the male champions, but you also mentioned, and sorry to your husband, but that you sabotaged you by accident by buying you the wrong size sticks. So you were learning.
He did. Oh my gosh. He was so excited. He bought me clubs last year, and I'm tall. I want to be 5'10", but I'm right under 5'10". And I was playing with a few women a few weeks ago who actually work in the sports industry, and they were watching me hit, and they were like, "Ali, stop." And they took over my clubs and they put them against theirs, and they're like, "They're 1.5 inches, 2 inches too short for you." So anyhow, yes, I'm now going to get extra long women's clubs. And in the meantime, I've been using my husband's.
Top tip from Ali: get the right size clubs, but also
Exactly.
have the confidence to give it a go. And again,
That's right.
Picking up on the male champions point, I want to ask Sophie. Lyon star goalkeeper dedicated her Champions League victory to her late coach, Marco Cornez, who sadly died the day of the final. And she attributed him as a man who changed her life and career and actually got her involved into goalkeeping in the beginning. How important is it to have male champions supporting women's football? And I know Olympique Lyonnais has had that from the very go with their women's team. It would be great to share some of that history and also pay tribute to the male champions that have supported your fantastic winning team.
You know, in Europe, football has been essentially men's sports. It was a women's sport at the very beginning in England, but then women were banned from that sport until the 70s. I think the decision was made by the English Federation in 1921 until the 70s. And so it's a recent sport, and it has been really depending on the men's club mainly. That's also a big difference with the NWSL, by the way. So it is, I mean, it has a tremendous importance to have men and champions engaged to support the women's game. I mean, it is the basis and the foundation in European clubs. And then the decision to go in women's football is taken by the leaders, and our leader, Jean-Michel Aulas, has been in that for 20 years. He decided that football is for everyone, no matter your gender, it's for everyone. And he decided also that we have to do things in the best way we can for women and men. So we have improved the infrastructures year after year. It has not been the best thing from the first year. The one thing Jean-Michel did at the very beginning is to invite a certain number of American players, including Hope Solo and a couple of others, so that we could learn from them and you know, try to understand what was to be a professional player in the women's game. And so that was a very interesting way to learn. And then there has been a strong support from the men's team from the beginning of the adventure, because when we started, it was the best years of the men's team. You know, we've been champions 7 times in a row at the beginning of the 20,000. How do you say that? 20,000 years. and so yeah, and so we needed to have the support from the men's side, and they have been very supportive, coming to the game, sharing without any problem the infrastructures. And so that was a fantastic support for the development of the women's team. And I don't know if you saw that, but we had a tweet from Pelé to celebrate the victory of our team. So, you know, just Pelé. What else?
It doesn't get better than that, does it, in terms of male support? And I thank you for that really very clear explanation, Sophie, of how the men have supported. And as you said, it sort of the women's team was started by Jean-Michel, who's the owner. So that just shows the important role that he played. And I'd love to bring Jessica in to explain the model and how it's slightly different in the US. And obviously you've got, Angel City, you mentioned them earlier. How does having female team owners, how is that shaping women's soccer in America and also throughout the world? Are they seeing it as a different product and marketing differently? And is that translating to revenue?
Yeah, and Sophie mentioned it. I think it's really an important distinction that the NWSL relative to other successful women's soccer properties, but also even within the US compared to the WNBA, that our league, the NWSL, is independently operated and owned. So we are not financially or operationally intertwined with any of the men's sports. We do have a handful of teams that are owned by Major League Soccer teams, and there's an interesting model there from a business perspective on the economies of scale and efficiencies that could be achieved, particularly where you own the same facility. And that's a model that has been tested, tried and true in other sports leagues as well. But I think the main distinction is really that investors are coming into the NWSL, and we're actually about to start an expansion process. So this is really timely conversation that investors are interested in the NWSL because they see the opportunity to grow with the league. And so the idea that this is a business that women's sports, and in particular women's soccer and the NWSL, is not thought of as a throw-in with a men's property or an afterthought or charity or philanthropy, or just because you want to check the box in your portfolio because it's the right thing to do, but genuinely investing because they believe that the asset will appreciate, like other investments in their portfolio, is really, from my perspective as a newcomer to women's sports and to the NWSL in particular, is a new trajectory. It's really it's been a transformation that I think has happened over the last couple of years. And the time is upon us to really lean in, invest, and leverage that interest and momentum to be able to grow the league.
I think it's really important points that, Jessica. It's not philanthropy, it's a standalone investment, women's football, and that's the way it's going. And that's a really good time to bring in Alison to explain the Start Something Priceless sponsorship activation that MasterCard did with OWL. And I think before we go to that, we'll have a sneak peek of the brilliant video, and I think it will get everyone on the edge of their seats.
Amazing! Kiss! Kiss! Hello! Comment allez-vous depuis? Bonjour!
Ali, tell us how MasterCard activated their investment, because it just looks fantastic. All ages, doing the heart shaped. I'll do it out to them, to the world. How did you do it?
Yeah, no, I think, so I'll cover this, and then I just want to make a point also about what Jessica was saying. But for Olympic Lean A, one of our key focus areas is driving more girls into the game. And that could be in both playing the game, but also in the business of the game. And with there being such, I guess, a synergy, or I guess comparison to technology, and looking at girls getting into technology, at the age of 12, you're dropping off. You're not as interested in STEM, and there's not as many opportunities to kind of re-engage. So we're very focused on getting girls into technology. So the activation you saw actually was a Girls for Tech program that we had engaged with youth age girls that were interested in soccer, and we wanted to introduce them to STEM and what MasterCard is, and they go through a sort of a curriculum which is very fun and football themed. And then we actually surprised them with some of the athletes from Olympic Lyonnais came onto the Zoom call, surprised them and said, not only are you meeting us now, and they did a sort of a chalk talk with them and let them ask questions, but they also then wore those girls' names in a match. So if you could see on the video, you saw sort of in French, girls' names under our logo. And so those girls from the Zoom call that were in our STEM program actually got to see their names. So if you can see it, you can be it, actually on the pitch in a game, which was really quite exciting. And, we really are very proud of what we do with our Girls for Tech program and how we've been able to marry it with sport, but whether it's football, golf, rugby, tennis, or even baseball, to get girls excited and see the opportunities beyond playing and within playing, because there's so much technology even within the sport. So that was what that activation was. But just on Jessica's point about the investment side, and if you look at the sponsor side of the house, we talked about the audiences and how media is growing, et cetera, but there's such an opportunity with women's sports fans, right? So, you're seeing, these women's sports fans having to really dig to find content, right? It is not on prime time. They have to be socially savvy. They're often tech forward. They're really leaning in and navigating and looking for that content, looking for that story. They really understand everything about not only the sport that they're truly passionate about, but they actually, consume content even in other areas. Really anything that's championing women. We're 51% of the population, right? We're making over 80% of the purchase decisions around the world. It's time, right? So there's a huge business opportunity, not only to be doing well and doing good and really supporting the society aspect of it, but there's a real business opportunity here for brands, and then on the investor side that Jessica talked about.
51% of the population. So we have that 1% casting vote. So come on, we need more fans, more women watching women, more men watching women. Jessica, right. You applauded. Sophie was nodding away. And I was just absolutely blown away when I saw DAZN's statistics. They had fans for Saturday's game from over 230 countries and territories tuned in, with an unprecedented 56 million views for its matches and content over the season. How do we translate these figures into more revenue for women's football? If you could just give me one short answer each, starting with you, Sophie, in one sentence, how do we translate to bring more revenue?
Well, I think Alison just said it. I mean, the more eyes, the more interesting we are, actually. So the strategy set up by DAZN is really great because they have brought the content to everyone across the world, so everybody can now know what it is, and we have to work on our product all the time, and that will drive the revenues if we keep our values and our authenticity, because I think that's what our sponsors, our partners are looking for. So I'm confident.
Loving the confidence. And I guess it's just global brand awareness. We've got to keep building that throughout. Jessica, what do you think? How do we translate it into revenue so that it gets invested back into women's sport, so we grow it? Quite simply, that's what we're needing.
I think the interesting aspect of this challenge is that we're really talking about conversion. The market has been primed. Whenever you look at any sort of marketing efforts, you need to first create awareness, relevance, and plant the seeds for action to be taken. And because of a host of factors, some of which are cultural and societal, others related specifically to women's soccer, and some of the background of the equal pay settlement with the US Soccer Federation, all of those different factors have planted the seeds and created the foundation where now we need to work on conversion. All of those people who are talking and tweeting and noticing, and it is the sort of proverbial water cooler conversation right now. Even with non-sports people, like my mom, who doesn't really watch sports, is talking about this with her colleagues in her profession, totally outside of our ecosystem. But we need really less talk and more action. We need people to buy tickets. We need people to watch games. We need people to buy merchandise. We need people to show up and take action that's quantifiable so we can translate it into revenue, because all of that foundation that needs to happen before you can grow has already occurred, which is why I've said so many times that all of the ingredients for the growth of the NWSL are here. We just now need to capitalize on it.
Yeah, we've got the seeds. Let's water those seeds and watch it grow together. Like me, Jessica, you're a sports lawyer and you're a champion of good governance. And your new role at NWSL comes shortly after the 2021 abuse scandal that led to the players publicly speaking out about the sexual abuse incidents that had occurred from coaches. How do you intend to turn a new page to ensure this doesn't happen again, and so that the NWSL continues on such a strong trajectory?
Well, you know this from any good governance model. It starts with transparency, policies, protocols, processes, and very clear communication about expectation about our code of conduct from all of our key stakeholders within our ecosystem. And I think we just need to be clear with really ourselves about the need to build confidence in that, both internally and externally. And it has to start internally, particularly with the players who we know are at the forefront of all of those seeds that we were just talking about in terms of planting those ideas about relevance in our current and future fans. They need to feel confident that the league is professionalized, that we're taking their feedback and their input seriously, that we have ongoing dialogue with the Player Association, that we're prioritizing the needs and expectations of the players, and that we consider them to be partners in our strategies and our goals and objectives. And so that's going to take some time. That's going to take some consistency in the way that we show up for them and internally primarily. And certainly my background in labor relations and collective bargaining is definitely being tested and deployed in the way that I'm working to build that trust with the Player Association to make sure that she, Megan Burke, the executive director, as well as the player reps and really the entire membership know and believe that the league will commit to do everything that we can to create the kind of positive and safe environment that our athletes deserve.
And just to reiterate that the SIGA Universal Standards on Good Governance in Sport, they tackle precisely those issues. They're on democracy, transparency, stakeholder engagement. So I'm confident that we can work together to support you and any other sports organization in order to ensure that you continue to engage good governance best practices on an ongoing basis, because it is a journey, good governance. It's not that you've achieved it and that's it. The standards change and evolve as best practice evolves. And that's definitely an area that SIGA excels in and is part of our expertise. I'm going to give a final question to our mentee. She's from the UK and she's actually involved in football. Her name's Harminder Kaur Behel and she's got a question for Jessica.
Hi, my name's Harminder Kaur Behel. I am a football scout for Shrewsbury Town FC and an inclusion advisory group member for the Amateur Football Alliance in the UK. I am proud to be a 2022 SIGA Women Global Mentee. My mentor is Christine Franklin. I have a question for Jessica. How do you feel that the bigger sports can learn from the so-called smaller sports in terms of accessibility and opportunity for women to be able to grow in their potential?
Yeah, such a great question. And really, I'll build on what Ali was talking about earlier, which is that because women's sports historically has been hard to find for our fans, we've really trained the entire ecosystem to be smarter in the way that we bring forward our product and our game. And I think that's in part due to the type of people who have been involved in the sport. And so we work actively to engage a diverse set of perspectives. And I will say one of the big changes that I've experienced joining the NWSL is when I log on to a Zoom call, I'm not the only woman. That's really been a big change for me. But really to be able to lean into people from different backgrounds and to embrace innovation and to really think about how we can push the envelope on the next generation of technology and really creating new and innovative ways for us to bring our game to our fans. And a lot of the major professional sports leagues, because of the space that they occupy and because of their historical success, I think most people would agree have really moved slower in that space. And so we're excited to lean in and pioneer new and innovative activations with our partners like MasterCard. I've said to many of our partners, if you have an idea that you're wanting to test and learn or do a proof of concept, think of us, because we are an emerging property, a challenger property, and we're willing to try new things to be able to test new technologies, new ideas of being able to engage fans.
Thank you, Jessica. We're out of time. I'd like to say a big thank you to our three wonderful guests. I think the stage is set. Women's football, soccer is on the rise, and we need you, if you're tuning in now, to support it and to support the continued growth of it. And now let's jump into part 2 of the Sega Wow Show, Unlocking the Power of Women's Sport, the Rise of the Underdog. And I'm delighted to be joined by 3 very special guests. Elizabeth Oakey, USA Football Board Member, amongst other impressive titles. She'll tell us more shortly. Megan Allison, Managing Director of Underdog Venture Team, and Nicole Jetta-West, CEO of Underdog Venture Team. Elizabeth, Megan, and Nicole, welcome to Women on Wednesdays. It's brilliant to have you here. And I'm going to get straight to it with Nicole. You have an amazing career in the sports industry. You recently left LA 2028 to become the CEO of Underdog Venture Team. Can you tell us a bit about Underdog and what it was set up to achieve?
Oh, no, thank you so much, Katie, for having us. Nothing better that I'd love to do on a Wednesday than be with wonderful women as yourselves. So yes, Underdog is a team of people coming together to help build brands. We are brand builders, and we provide amazing brand building services, from strategy to marketing to partnerships to PR and experiential. And we also have a venture studio. And our venture studio is where we focus on early stage, ahead of the curve companies that are in the sport, tech, health and wellness industry landscape. And we work with them on investing, but also in helping provide our brand building services. And we've made a commitment that 2/3 of the companies in our portfolio will be BIPOC or women owned. So really focusing on working with underrepresented communities and helping bring women-owned businesses to the forefront by not only helping with our services, but investing in them. And we have a diverse team that we are building at Underdog, diversity of thought, of talent, of culture and experiences. And we fully believe that when you have that diverse team, that is what brings innovation. And that innovation is what actually brings forward opportunities and revenue opportunities for companies and brands alike.
I just love it, Nicole. You're walking the talk in terms of how your core values are actually changing and shaping the whole strategy of your business. Elizabeth, over to you. The last Sega Wow Show was dedicated to athlete transitioning careers. And how has your experience as an athlete influenced your career outside of sports? And can you share with us, to all our international viewers, and what was your biggest achievement as an athlete during your career?
Certainly. Thank you so much for the opportunity to join you. I think that to start off the fun part, what was my most highest achievement that I had as an athlete, I was part of the U.S. National Women's Tackle Football national team. So again, that's American football, just for our global listeners. And I was part of the team that won the gold in the Women's World Championship in Helsinki, Finland in 2013. That was a very proud moment. And from that opportunity, the ability to then transition as an international athlete to a career outside of sport, the thing that kept being a through line in my experience was the ability to work with diverse stakeholders to achieve a goal. Every athlete understands that. We know what the mission is of our team. We know what we're trying to achieve day in and day out, and taking those skills from the field to the boardroom. Specifically, the ability to work with existing structures, recognize the bias and barriers that exist, and then slowly work to changing those obstacles has really helped me in my work in social impact and in corporate responsibility.
Thank you for sharing that. And I want to bring Megan Allison into the conversation. Megan, can you tell us a bit about your career? Obviously, you've just joined Underdog Venture Team, but tell us what you were doing before and how were you mentored coming up in your career?
Sure. So thanks, Katie, for having me, and really excited to be on with Nicole and Elizabeth. So yeah, I am recently joining Underdog after being 16 years on the agency consulting side. So I spent the past 16 years really working with big brands like PepsiCo, Frito-Lay, helping them build their strategies for activating in the sports space, negotiating those sponsorships, and then ultimately helping them bring those sponsorships to life. And through that career, I've had the opportunity to mentor young women, both formally and informally. And it's interesting, like the mentor-mentee relationship is very similar, whether it's a formal or informal relationship. We create the relationship with Create the Journey, but what's very special about organizations like what you're doing with SIGA is creating like the infrastructure for young females to actually find mentors. Through my career, I didn't have the kind of structured environment to be placed with a mentor. I had to like proactively search for those people around me. So I think what you're doing is fabulous. It gives our future leaders a very kind of organized and structured opportunity to meet and interact with some incredible women globally, and to gain guidance through just a little bit more structured process, which I love, and I'm so pleased and excited to be a part of.
Well, we're so happy to have both you and Nicole as our global mentors, and I'm sure I'll be poaching Elizabeth next year for the 2023 programme, because we've already kick-started the 2022 and we're full, but we would love to have you in the future, Elizabeth. Going back to Nicole, but obviously both you and Megan Allison are global mentors on our programme, and it was during the first group session on the SIGA Women Global Mentorship Programme was dedicated to SMART goals. And all of the global mentees and mentors joined for a real education on how to set your goals and making sure that they are smart and that they're realistic and measured. For 2022, my SMART goal was to find the first official partner of the 2022 SIGA Women Global Mentorship Programme. And through Underdog Team Ventures, it seems that I've achieved that SMART goals. Can you say a few words?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, Katie, we're excited to help you achieve your SMART goal. If that was one of your major goals, you clearly have accomplished that. And so kudos to you for making that achievement. But we are incredibly honored at Underdog to sponsor the SIGA Women's Global Mentorship Program. For us, it's connecting with young sports-minded women and professionals who are really around the globe, and that they're looking to advance themselves in their career, and they're looking for future leaders and the opportunity for us to help bring forth those future leaders. It's really our goal to bring innovation and excitement and diversity to the landscape. And that's through diversity of thought and experience and talent and culture And SIGA is all about that. And the Global Mentorship Program is all about that. So we are excited to join forces with you so that we can help grow female leadership and empowerment in sport.
Well, we are even more excited. This is a truly momentous occasion. It's hot off the press today. Press release is going out. And thank you for helping achieve my SMART goal. What's Underdog's SMART goal as the newly appointed CEO for 2022?
Yeah, I think our SMART goal for 2022, first and foremost, is to make sure that we grow the awareness of Underdog so that people are aware of who we are and the services that we provide and the things that we're doing to help, not just for the services that we're bringing, but also for our mission, our broader mission to change the landscape of what diversity looks like in the sports landscape on the front office, in the head of the teams and the properties and the leagues, and on the agency side, and that we can make sure that we are really being mindful about that diverse landscape. And that is all of the things we just talked about. That diversity of thought, culture, and experience is what breeds innovation. And so first and foremost in 2022 is to let people know more about who Underdog is and what it is that we provide, and make sure that everybody really just gives us a moment to share what we're trying to do in the landscape and see how they'll be able to come along and help in the mission.
Thanks, Nicole. That leads really nicely to the first video question, where you can win some very cool, snazzy t-shirts. And I'm sure our global mentees who are watching are going to be fingers on the pulse. There's the picture of it. Love that. What's the gift giveaway question?
Okay, here we go. So which group is the official partner of the SIGA Women's Global Mentorship Program? A, NWSL, B, Underdog Venture Team, and C, USA Football.
Brilliant. Send your answers on the live chat and we'll be announcing the winners on social media. So stay tuned for that. If I was going to be greedy, maybe my next SMART goal would to be asking for all three, which leads me back to Megan Allison to say, how do we actually encourage other partners to join Underdog and support SIGA Women? Because my second ambition would be at the next March Summit on Female Leadership in Sport to have the finances ready so that I could actually fly all of the mentees to wherever it's taking place in the world. What's your advice to other brands to encourage them to join us?
Well, so that would be fabulous to get everyone together in one room. So we definitely need to get other brands and partners to really just understand the mission and to truly believe in it. Like I was saying, after 16 years and being in a certain space, one of the things that was really important to me when coming over to Underdog was that it was foundational, like the mission and what we were driving to change, the impact we were trying to make in the industry. And I think if other companies and potential partners can take a step back and just kind of look inside of their teams and look at the diversity that's already within them and kind of reset and say, like, let's get on board. Let's all get on board with this mission to make change. And it's honestly, it's not just talking about it. It is actually doing it. I mean, Nicole will say, all the time, our company is going to do well, but we're going to do good. And that's a priority. So if we can just get everyone to just kind of buy into that Underdog mentality of it's time to rise up, I think we'll all be together next year, Katie, wherever that is, So
I can't wait for that. I'm ready to rise up and I'm feeling in an ambitious and optimistic mood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. I'd like to, we've been talking about diversity of thought and the importance of diversity and inclusion. And I'm going to go to Elizabeth, who is on a board member, and ask you, from your perspective as a board member, what is the biggest challenge women on sports board face? Currently, we have a situation where there's probably not enough women on the boards of sports organizations. How do we achieve the 30%, which is the SIGA gold standard? And then certainly in the coming years, my ambition is to change the gold standard to 50%. What's your advice?
One of my favorite quotes, you saying that just triggered this thought, is Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when there are 9. So in reference to that, when there will be enough women on the board, or see the Supreme Court in the United States. But similarly, how do we end up getting more women on sports boards? I think the first thing to note when you try to join a board, or maybe you've recently been named to a board, is that knowing that these spaces were not designed for women. So women are used to being the underdogs, and we have had lots of practice in that. So I do believe that it is a challenge that many women, and especially athletes, can take on. But my biggest suggestion in terms of how do we advance more women on the board is to have success on the board to begin with, right? So the goal is not to be the first. The goal is not to be the last. So we don't want to be the first one in the room, but then there's never any other women. So how do we make sure that we get the wins, the small wins, while you're serving on the board, to ensure that there are more women that are able to join? And one example I think that you can really take away is to be strategic, look for those small wins, but create a path for advancement and improvement, knowing that this will not happen overnight. So when I joined the USA Football Board in 2015, I was one of the first female athlete representatives on the board. And we were really trying to start to advance women's American football. Fast forward to the spring of 2022, we had our first Women and Girls Leadership Summit to try to align all stakeholders from the youth level to college, high school, to professional level, to make sure that we're building that pipeline. But that wouldn't have been possible if we did not find those small wins along the way to keep having the opportunity to fold more and more women into the mix.
I couldn't agree more. It's being strategic. And I love the point that you made, leaving your legacy. And that legacy is important. It's not just to celebrate, I'm the first and the last. And I think there really needs, and in recent years, a change in some women's mentality who kind of held on to that privileged only one. And that's all what the SIGA Women program is about. It's about bringing together women around the world, breaking barriers, and creating almost a level playing field and a platform to share ideas. And I know from our mentorship program, even some of the mentors got jobs within it, and they swapped teams, so to speak, or organizations, as well as providing those opportunities for young women. Have you mentored, Elizabeth, or helped any women who are looking to join sports organizations boards or leagues boards, and what's your advice to them?
I think that the one piece I will say is that sometimes you can influence and lead from many different positions. Oftentimes we think I have to have this exact title, but the truth is, when you're talking about leading boards, there are many opportunities. It's not just the executive board. There are committees, and I've seen that to be a really successful and empowering way for women to get involved. So for example, Callie Bronson, she is the chief of staff for the Cleveland Browns, which is an NFL team. And she first joined as the coaching committee within USA Football. And that was an opportunity for her to be leading, but not automatically from the executive committee. So I think that for women that are looking for opportunities to join boards or other leadership opportunities, recognize that you can lead from many different positions. You have lots of influences of power, and there's nothing wrong with mapping your path to get there, but recognizing that it might be a long game.
Great advice. I'm going to go to Nicole because we have a video question from one of our SIGA Women mentees she's on our youth council and she's from Serbia. So we're going to queue up the question.
Hello everyone, my name is Angelija Milovanovic and I'm from Belgrade, Serbia. Currently I'm working as a public relations officer at Women's Basketball Club Partizan Belgrade, and also I'm part of SIGA Women Mentorship Program. My mentor is Adriana Devero from Underdog Venture team, and I have a question for Nicole Jeter-West. So I would like to know what were the pressures, obstacles, problems that you faced at the beginning of your career when entering sports industry, that you see that are present also now when girls wants to join and start their career in the sports industry, and what should be done on a high level or from some bottom-up initiatives for these problems to fade away and for girls not to have to face them anymore. Thank you very much.
Well, that was an amazing question. Thank you so much. So I would say, the challenges and some of the barriers that I experienced at the early stage of my career, unfortunately, some of those are still the same challenges that are present today. And so when you think about being in a space that is male dominated, in a number of different areas of the business, you find yourself very often being the only one in the room. And that can be the only one in the room from a particular background or culture, but it can also be the only woman in the room. And so being able to be confident in who you are and the value that you bring to that room and your ability to voice your opinions and your thoughts and your expertise is challenging, especially when you're early in your career. And so finding your voice and knowing your value and being able to sort of share that at the table, in the room, even if you are the only one, is really what allows the door to open to make sure that you don't stay the only one. The other one I would point out, which happens still to this day, is what I like to call mansplaining. But when you may have said an idea, you may have brought up something that you think is, unique or different, or just made a point in a conversation, and someone feels the need to reiterate your point, or to maybe say it differently, or to maybe say it exactly the same way you said it, but just say it again on top of you. And so that's one that I think, when you talk about what can we do, first and foremost, being comfortable with sort of calling people on it. And it's going to vary based on your sort of position in the company and where you are and who's in the room. But also, if you're not in a position to do that, having an advocate who can. And so I very much have found that I have had, over the course of my career, some really great male advocates who have been comfortable to speak up on my behalf, right? And say things like, I think Nicole just said that, or that sounds just like what's, so-and-so said in the room. And you'd be surprised how that can help sort of reframe the room and allow people to be more conscious. Because I do think a lot of times it's not always because someone is sort of going out there and trying to make a point and trying to mansplain, but that it's just almost, a subconscious thing. And until you can bring awareness to that, then they won't know that that's a pattern or something that's being done. And so some of it is advocacy, and advocacy is huge. I would say, look for advocates wherever you are in your career, how you're working, but having advocates is really important. And then also being able to know your value, know your voice. And then I will say, I live by this quote all the time, and it's Shirley Chisholm, and she says all the time about if they're not going to make room for you at the table, if there's not a seat at the table for you, bring your own folding chair. And I believe we can bring our own folding chairs when we know our value and we know our voice, and we can bring that to the table.
Nicole, you've just explained mansplaining to us, which I love, by the way. Happened to me earlier today. Should have known that definition then. Everyone, and my special guests were all nodding on the mansplaining thing, unfortunately. But again, shows like this, they're for women and men to watch, and hopefully now that's educated you. So that would be great. Megan, I want to bring you in, because we've been talking about, really, I guess, how can women in sport subvert being the underdog? And sometimes we doubt ourselves, we question ourselves, and that holds us back. How can we be the lead dog?
Absolutely. Well, without mansplaining, Nicole said a lot of it, right? But it's really confidence. It's, as I mentioned earlier, there's not always the structured mentorship program. There's not always someone that's going to take your hand when you walk in the room. And what I found during my career is that I looked for a couple different people around me. One, the people that I just admire. I admire who they are authentically, how they're carrying themselves in the space, maybe the accomplishments they've had. And it may not even be in sports, but I've just admired them and want to emulate some of the personality traits that have made them successful. But then secondly, who do I want to aspire to be? There's people who career-wise, their skill sets, their achievements, like the role that they have might be what I want to go. And so over the years, I watched closely, how did they get there? What career path did they take? What skill sets? How did they educate themselves? Who did they surround themselves with? And I kind of created my own little kind of mentor circle of people without them even knowing it. So I thank all of you out there who mentored me unknowingly. But, you know, I did all that to build my own confidence so that when I did go into the room, particularly I spent a lot of years working in motorsports. So not only was I one of the only females in the room, by far was I a minority in the room. And if I didn't walk in there with confidence and know what I was talking about, I would have been mansplained right out of the room. So yeah, the confidence and creating kind of that circle of mentors around me through admiration and aspiration has been critical for me.
Thank you for that. And that leads me really nicely on to sort of finding male champions. And I think we've got a male champion of female leadership in sport. It's one of your founders. Actually, Dan Mannix was awarded Man of the Month for Sega Wow last year. But you've got a giveaway question from one of your, which is a prize to win a book written by one of your founders. It's not Dan, it's the other one. Tell us about it. We've got it on the screens. Tell us the giveaway question. Again, send your answers in the live chat. First right answer will announce you as the winner on social media later this week. What's the question?
Absolutely. So first, to your point, yes, we have two phenomenal advocates in the founders of our company with Dan Mannix and Dave Nugent. And his book is The Prize, Zero Sales, which I have read cover to cover. And the question is, who recently was appointed commissioner of the National Women's Soccer League? Was it Jessica Berman, A, Allison Giordano, B, or Sophie Savage, C?
Thank you so much. Send your answers in the live chat and we'll announce them later this week. You could be winning that book and those awesome t-shirts. We're going towards the end, and we've got two global media partners that are tuned in. One's from Portugal and one's actually from Malaysia. And we're going to go to the first video question. It's from Pearl Lee. She's managing editor at 2213 in Malaysia. And as I said, she's one of Sega's global media partners. Thank you, Pearl. What's your video question? And I believe it's to Nicole.
Hello, my name is Pearl Lee and I'm the managing editor of Malaysian-based news website 2213. We are a Sega media partner. My question today is for Ms. Nicole Jada-West. What does it take to convince investors to invest in the underdog teams, including startups within the sports industry, as these people tend to have their eyes set on teams that are most likely to succeed?
Thank you, Pearlie. That was a great question. So one of the things that we need to do when we're working and looking at what are potential companies to invest in and which companies are looking to invest in startups and early stage founders, it's the founder. Really understanding and believing in the founders is integral, because the founder is the one who has either dreamt up the vision of the service or the product, and their level of intensity and passion and drive, a lot of that plays into how successful the company will be. And so if you have a founder that is just so set on winning and finding ways to win and really believes in their product and their service, that's half the battle. And that is definitely really important when you're looking from an investing standpoint. The other is to understand the model. And is the model scalable? Is it something that has the ability to grow and expand? Or is it something that is really just focused in a particular niche area? And if it is there enough depth within that particular sector for that company to be successful? And so, looking at financials and cash flow and understanding all of those things are very important. But I will tell you, above all of that, first and foremost, it's the founder, the passion and the excitement and the energy that a founder has. And then from there, really what we're focused on in our investments is also leveling the playing field. Quite often, you will find that when founders are looking for capital and they're going and talking to VC funds, oftentimes, if you're a woman or you're a person of color, you are given a harder time to try and prove why you should get that capital or why your valuation is what it is. And so the questions that are asked and the hoops, I will say, that you are, given to jump through are definitely more than what someone else who might be your counterpart, who may have maybe a similar service or product, they won't experience that same level of scrutiny. And so what we try to do is make sure that we level the playing field by making sure that we're looking at the founder, looking at the service, the product that they're offering, but doing that from a really unbiased perspective and being able to say, let's look at what the service and product is and what they're bringing to the table, and not put a filter of color or gender or any of those things on it that will cause barriers to entry. And so those are some of the key things that I would say as we're looking at investments and as we're seeing what's happening in the landscape and how we're hoping to, in our own way, help level that playing field.
Thank you, Nicole. The second video question is from Celia Lourenco. She's a journalist at A Bola, which is a Portuguese publication, and it's to Elizabeth. Let's play the question.
My name is Celia Lourenco. I'm a journalist at A Bola, a national sports newspaper from Portugal. We are a SIGA media partner, and my question is to Miss Elizabeth Hockey. From your experience at USA Board, does the female sports is now more appealing to male investors than it was back on your days as a team member? Thank you.
Oh, wow. What a great question. So it's interesting. I do believe that women's sports has had an exponential growth in terms of investment within the last 5 years. I think that we've moved beyond the notion of trying to show and prove our worth to seeing it again as a business and an opportunity to not only advance the sport, but to move the needle. And I think that one thing that in the past, when I was an athlete, that was lacking from the conversation was that there was a business opportunity there. So women's soccer has kind of, especially the U.S. women's national team, has kind of blown up that argument. And I believe that we're seeing momentum in other sports as well. Women's hockey has had tremendous growth. And I believe that moving forward, the goal is that we don't ask if it's a men's or a women's team. We just ask who's the best.
That's a brilliant answer. We just ask who's the best. It's based on merit. So thank you to my special guests. We have seen that this is the rise of the underdog, and together we will be subverting it into the lead dog and to ensure that women's sport continues its amazing trajectory, both in terms of on the field, but off the field, in terms of board positions and female leadership. And to close this episode, as promised, we will play out with the highlights reel from the March Summit on female leadership in sport. The next WOW will be on Wednesday, the 22nd of June, which is the day before the 50th anniversary of Title IX. See you then.
The topic of today's SIGA Summit, female leadership in sport, is just one single aspect of the reform agenda that is part of our drive to promote good governance in our industry.
how can sport fulfill its mission to the full if we look at the highest executive organs of international sports federations and we see female leadership reduced to insignificant 17.8%. Is this the best we can do?
When you think about what message you want to deliver to the world, people are expecting companies to stand for something these days, to have a purpose.
You know, how can we transition our brand values, our mission as a company to have equity?
Microsoft has many strategic partnerships, and more than anything, it's such an honor to work with a CEO who has put integrity in the forefront in terms of bringing technology that's accessible to all.
It's really about using your leverage, using your voice to really make sure people understand that before we are athletes, we are human beings.
It's me pushing through that ceiling, but it's bringing others through with me. That keeps me going at this moment in time, creating that change.
And on behalf of all of us, the SIGA Special Recognition Award. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Our job as leaders in sport is to make all of those participants welcome.
And we always talking about get a seat at the table. I don't think it stops there. I say bring a chair with you. You get a seat, bring a chair. And that's a part of mentoring to me as well.
It's really important to mentor. We have a program that we call Advantage All, which we launched in 2017. And it's a program that's really designed to make sure that tennis is an equal sport for all.
And the beauty of sport is that sport can unite people, doesn't matter the age, the ability, the gender, the ethnicity, where they come from.
What plays out on the big field fuels dreams and shapes the culture, and hence it is how the girls of today imagine themselves as the leaders of tomorrow.
Choose courage over comfort. Embrace ongoing best practice to enhance and innovate your governance, your reputation, and your credibility. This is what the fans, the consumers, and the brands are demanding, and we want to work with you in a collaborative way. And go through our independent rating and verification system.